Chancellor George Osborne insisted this weekend that there is no alternative to the strategy he's pursuing. But this lunchtime, one prominent Conservative is suggesting there is. David Davis was runner-up to David Cameron in the leadership contest in 2005. As a backbencher, he remains an influential voice from the right of the party. Just before he went off to deliver his speech, I asked him to explain his alternative.
What it amounts to is a whole series of measures to increase the growth rate in the economy, increase employment, and to basically increase the wealth-creating sector, the private sector. And it's based on what other countries have done. The most stark recent example being Germany. Germany 9 years ago was in a terrible state, big climbing deficit worse than ours, breaking all the Maastricht guidelines in Europe. Unemployment going up, and a social democrat government, not even a right of centre government, a social democrat government took this on board. They cut income tax, they cut back on state regulation, they changed employment law for small companies. And today, of course, they are now the masters of the universe in Europe. They're the dominant economy. And it all started then.
George Osborne said over the weekend there is no alternative easy road. What you seem to be saying to him is there is an alternative that the approach so far, at least, has not delivered.
That's right. Well, I think there's not much argument about that. Look at what the economy is showing. It's showing a negative growth rate. Now, even if those numbers are a bit wrong, and they might be, we're near zero. And that doesn't create extra jobs, that doesn't pay the bills for the government, and it means the pressure on taxes goes on and on. It's not a question of there is no easy alternative. Nobody pretends the alternative is easy. It's just we have to put front and centre growth in the economy.
You talk in your speech about there being, if you like, an alibi for the government for the failure for growth to be achieved, and that doesn't amount to a policy. What do you mean by that?
Well, it's very easy in politics to spend a lot of your time saying this is your fault, not my fault. Now, truth is, it is a proper alibi in the sense that most of this has occurred as a result of what the previous government did. But I'm afraid you have to put that behind you. You have to say, look, OK, it's your fault it's gone wrong, but it's my job to put it right. And that's what we should be doing.
The government says it is trying to do exactly that. We're going to get a series of measures to be announced in the coming weeks. We're told there'll be legislation that will allow the government to underwrite private investment in housing and infrastructure, a small business bank, which is the latest attempt to try and get lending increased to small and medium-sized businesses, and a process to make it harder to appeal against the granting of planning permission. Will those measures help?
They may help a small amount. The history of government-sponsored banks is not a very good one, I'm afraid, in any country of the world, let alone ours. On the planning front, well, there are changes necessary to the planning laws. That's certainly true. Whether this is the right one, well, until I see the detail, I don't know the answer. But it's not going to save the economy. We won't save the economy by house building. It'll help, but it won't turn it around.
And in terms of your policy proposals, they're quite specific on taxation. What should the Chancellor be doing? He has an opportunity to do this perhaps in his autumn statement. He certainly has the opportunity to do it in the budget next spring. What precisely should he be doing to taxation that he has not done already?
I don't want to, I mean, there's actually, one of the things I say in my speech, you don't have to reinvent the wheels. A fantastic Taxpayers Alliance analysis published a couple of months ago about a long-term strategy, and it's got to be a long-term strategy. It'll start now. But if it were me, if I had a pick, I'd look at national insurance. I'd start to eliminate national insurance contribution, employers' contribution from the bottom up for the small companies first, because that's a direct tax on jobs. I'd look again at capital gains tax, because once you've cut the top rate of tax, the optimum capital gains tax, the one that raises the most amount of tax, comes down, and it should be lower than it is now. There are a whole series of things you can do.
And what about in terms of the cuts programme?
Well, the problem with the cuts programme is not the programme itself, but it was the speed of it. It's taken too long to take effect. I mean, somebody said the other day it's only 6% of it underway. Well, if we're going to get the debt levels of the country down rather than growing by 600 million in this Parliament, we've got to get on with it.
So that's the challenge for whatever new team the Prime Minister puts in place with his reshuffle, which we're told will happen in the first part of this week. What signal do you think think Mr Cameron needs to send in that reordering the ministerial ranks?
He needs to send the signal that we take our competitiveness very seriously indeed, that we want to put Britain back up there competing in the global market, which is the way we earn our way back from where we are now, and create more jobs and more wealth.
And for the party?
Well, if we succeed as a government, then we succeed as a party. It's really simple.
But is it a question of, if you like, changing the balance of the people who are in government from the Conservative side? He clearly can't do it on the Liberal Democrat side, but can he do it on the Conservative side? Is there a more of a focus, more of a kind of a David Davis slant to the government that you would like to see?
Look, I want the most talented people as ministers, not a particular colour or hue of policy. I think we need to have the best team he can get. Simple as that.
And if that were offered to include you, if he picked up the phone and said, David, come back onto the front bench, play a part in all this, would he get a positive response?
I've never said no, but I've never been expecting that, and I don't think I will expect it tomorrow either. I shan't be standing by my phone.
That was the Conservative backbencher David Davis, sounding like he intends to